Okay, you all good? Let's do it. Hello and welcome to the B2C Lead Generation Podcast. And we are joined today by Peep Laja, who is the CEO of a really cool company called Winter. Thank you for your time, Peep. How are you doing?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm doing good.
Excellent. We're big fans of you guys. We follow you on LinkedIn. I feel like I don't want to use the term influencer. I feel like maybe that's not the right term, but certainly someone who everyone's very interested in what they've got to say about marketing. So yeah, we're really excited to have you here.
Very kind.
Now, normally I kind of do a little introduction of the company, of the guests we have on. But seeing as you guys specialize in messaging, it seems it would be a daft for me to try and do that for you. I feel like I should ask you to do it instead, if that's all right.
So with Winter, we put your copy, your messaging in front of the very audience you're trying to sell to market to, and we tell you what they think of it, how they perceive it, what kind of questions come up, what kind of friction is in the messaging, what kind of questions still remain after reading everything, that sort of thing.
Brilliant. I noticed that you're sort of edging towards specializing in B2B, but does B2C still count? Does it still make a part of the...
Yeah, we do have consumer panels as well. It just seems to be that in terms of who naturally gravitates to our kind of service and who is ready to pay for it is more B2B companies. My leading hypothesis is that because the annual contract value is just much higher, and so it's easier to justify the cost of doing it. Obviously, if you're a high volume e-commerce or whatever B2C SaaS, it still works, still valuable because the world still revolves around copy.
Yeah, well, we're a SaaS company, and it's interesting you mention it because it's something that we struggle with. I wouldn't say struggle with, but I think that you're so trying to fit into a niche constantly that it's you're like trying to define it so tightly that you realize that how much importance the copy sort of plays within that.
For sure, because especially in the early stages for us, where we need to build awareness that we exist as Winter, because Winter just launched 6 months ago. So you want to start with a niche and niche down and own a niche before you expand. Obviously, down the line, as you get bigger, if you look at category leaders, then they're increasingly for everyone. Shopify is for everyone, and MailChimp is for everyone, and so on, and Amazon, obviously, and so that it stops mattering once you have market penetration. But at early days, niching down is very important.
Is that why you changed the name of your companies then? I was looking through them. I think everyone's been changed at some point. It like CXL only like a small amount, get rid of conversion and put a C in. But is that to do with like the niching down, or is there some other? Is it just because you think it's right?
Different reasons there, and I can go into that, but basically has to do with one is our product roadmap, like. Naming it copy testing makes you mono-functional. You can only be one thing, but our product roadmap is going to be, we're building a platform for delivering audiences and you build whatever service on top of it. So message testing is just one use case out of hundreds that are coming. So that was instantly we painted ourselves in the corner here. Two is that a literal descriptive name like copy testing is a weak brand name. In the end, in SaaS, you can't compete on features in what you do because everybody can copy them, and they will. And so your biggest, strongest competitive advantage is your brand. Brand is your moat. You can have other moats, but brand is a significant one. And if you have a weak brand name, it's a significant handicap. Why would you want that? And I was didn't think that one through when launching it with that kind of a name. And third was positioning. So when we say, hey, we're about fixing copy and testing copy, who thinks that's important? Certainly not the marketing leadership, because the way and we sell to marketing organizations predominantly. So what does an average VP marketing or CMO think about? They think about positioning. They think about messaging. And copy is, oh, who's the new guy who just started last week? Johnny, come over here, write a copy. Like copy is such junior, entry level, intern level stuff. And no senior self-respecting marketing leader thinks about writing any line of copy. Obviously, I'm generalizing here, and there are notable exceptions, but the predominant mindset is that copy is just something very tactical. Like the CMO does not decide what the button CTA is. Obviously, I have a big problem. It's a wrong idea to have, but such is the world, and I'm not looking to deliberately increase friction here. So we stopped using the messaging around copy. It's all about now messaging.
Yeah. And do you think the same strategy applies to B2C as well, where you're the naming of things as well?
Well, certainly. I mean, in case of brand names, like if you're selling paper towels and your brand is called the Paper Towel Company, it's gonna have a really hard time grabbing some mind share in the brand, because like you need physical availability and mental availability, right, as you're building your brand. And if you have a generic brand name, it's really hard to build up that mental availability. And also in a casual conversation, when somebody drops your brand, hey, I just bought some paper towels. I mean, people don't talk about paper towels really, but if they would say, I'm like, whatever, I can't name any paper towel brands. The Polar Bear paper towel brand, that's a good one. People can name you. Or like if your running shoes is called running shoes.
Yeah.
It's like stupid. Or if Tesla were the electric car company. It's a really hard time,
It makes me think whether Data Bowl is a suitable brand name.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's rampant in the agency world, where like we're the SEO experts or SEO consultants, or brand experts. Yeah. So I mean, people make mistakes. I made a mistake. It's just you correct it as soon as you can.
And I read as well that you changed it to winter because you realized that like names, or the closest thing to names, like an actual person's name, had a higher sort of impact.
Exactly, because in B2B, there's so many boring companies, like full of jargon, and they're like this distant, and you can't relate to them in any way, really. And so having a name that is like a human, it helps a little bit. All these things, like there's no one thing that makes or breaks, and you can have whatever god awful stupid name and still make it. Like usertesting.com is doing just fine with a literal name. But of course, if they were called Linda, they might be doing even better. So none of these things, I think, is a make or break, but every little bit can help. It can help and or remove friction in the process.
Yeah.
So you're in like a unique position in the sense you get to work with both B2B and B2C. And myself and Simon, we're a B2B company in terms of our marketing, but we offer tech that serves B2C. So, we find it very interesting what we can learn from both sides that maybe, the other guys aren't doing. But do you think there's anything that people who are listening who are doing B2C lead gen can learn from a B2B sense?
I think you can learn a lot vice versa, but in like B2B, the deal size really matters in like how much money you can spend on acquiring a customer and what all you can do. Because like if you're booking demos and the prospect is unqualified, like you don't want that, because that's a very costly thing to have. So you want to add more friction into the sales process, where in B2C that will be unheard of, where you're making it harder to buy. So that I think B2C is more likely to use like direct response copy, which B2B should also do, because most of B2B copy is just so damn boring. And also like, because a lot of B2B sales doesn't happen on the website, but like it's just to generate a lead and then sales takes over. So I don't think that B2B has actually much to learn. Unless maybe in a luxury category where you do want some intentional friction, it's not for everyone.
It's funny because we build sort of sales funnel landing pages, I guess, a multi-stage thing. And the whole idea is to qualify the user to get to an endpoint so that the lead comes in, you get like, 25, 30% conversion rate. And like you mentioned, because we're in like a unique position where we're doing B2B, but the software is for companies doing B2C, so we sort of see both sides. And I think our landing pages that we use to generate demos on like bidding on keywords or on Facebook or whatever, we're thinking that we'll go for like a multi-page funnel where we actually qualify the user down to a point, and then when they hit demo, we capture all that information in, and it's a lot easier because effectively, like you said, it's all to do with the quality of the lead, right? So if it comes in, it's not great. You have to qualify it while you're talking to them. If you can actually qualify that online before they come in, and when you talk to them, you're like, I know what you want. I know what you need.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Recently, I was clicking through the Noom funnel. Noom, the weight loss product that's like everywhere now. I don't know how many billions per month they're spending on ads, but they're like, I don't know how many exactly, but it seemed like before they asked me to actually sign up, I had made already 60 clicks or something. Like the funnel is just so long, but it's like so engaging. It's like a game. You get hooked. And then commitment and consistency. That one of the Cialdini's influence principles is like the more smaller commitments you've made. You've invested time and clicks, the more likely you are to take on bigger commitments down the line. So by the time they're ready to ask you for money, you're like, hey, I'm 60 clicks in. I spent like 15 minutes of my time. Of course, I'm going to sign up.
Do you know what they should do? Do you know what Noom should do? Is tell you how much weight you've lost by doing all those clicks at the end of it. So you've just lost 6 pounds.
Moving the deadline of the date of your, when you get your results, and it's like, oh, you're 60 clicks in, one more day. Well,
they're like, just show a skinny finger and go, this will be your whole body when you finish with us.
Totally.
So you talked about the panels that you test, messaging, and people send you the link and stuff. How do you put these panels together, and how big are they?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I mean, our panel is thousands and thousands of people and growing by the day. So our panels are all built by ourselves. So I have another company called CXL, and so from CXL email list has like 100,000, 125,000 marketers or whatever in the list. So we recruited the initial set of people from there, and from everybody who's on the panel, we know their LinkedIn profile, and so based on that, we know many things like what the title, their experience, what size company they work at, et cetera, et cetera. So and now what we do, we started with CXL, a newsletter, and now we're going actually recruiting from other communities. So if we want to put together a panel of product people, like where are they hanging out? There are all these various product communities all around. So we tap into those communities and recruit from those places. So the panel business is interesting because like when I started Winter, I thought we're in the business of helping people write better copy. It's data for copy, analytics for copy. But I realized that B2B panel is an unsolved problem. If you want to put together a panel using a traditional market research firm, for a panel of 15 people, they'll take a month and $15,000. We do it in a day, and a couple $100. So it will really disrupting a space here. And the other thing we learned, like when we first built it, we thought we're going to use third-party panels. There are lots of panel companies around. Your Lucid and Disco and Synth and you name it. There's a lot of them, and they have APIs, and through API you can request whatever type of person through their panels, and that's what we thought we're going to do. And then little did we know, it's all a big scam. I might get sued for this, but like we used their panels because we wanted to. We didn't want to build our own panels. And so you pay top dollars to recruit, whatever VP marketings. And these are all like, I think like Indian teenagers or like.
They're actors, basically. It's like when you have those, they do it in politics where they have a round table and they go, pretend to be this person, so they get someone to try and think like them.
Kind of like when we asked them, we asked them various questions about the panelists. It was obvious that they were certainly not marketers, and certainly not VP marketing people. It was like best case is like there was our client was organic AI for organic traffic. This is like a SaaS company, and so our VP marketing from a reputable panel company. The panelists say, "Hey, what does organic food have to do with traffic on the streets?" It's like just no concept of what is organic traffic. It's like, yeah, I don't think this guy's a marketers, and you pay a lot of money.
Yeah, they were like, no, we don't eat GM food. It's all organic.
Yeah. So anyway, so then we realized that actually this is a huge underserved space, and there's a big scam going on, and people don't even know they're duped. And people are making strategic decisions. Hey, we surveyed, like 5,000 marketing leaders, and they chose yes on this question. A lot of half of these are bots, and then the other half is like whoever, randos. So
it's interesting that you some of the audiences you go after. So when you and I arranged to talk, I did my own little market research of going out to a bunch of lead generators that I know in Skype that build landing pages, because we build a bunch of landing pages for people, right? So I know a lot of people that do it. And I know how the copy gets put together, right? Which is they just sit and think about it. Like, I want to hit mothers over 50. What would hit them? It's got to be family. It's got to be worries about money, whatever. I'll just put, don't worry about the money. Don't worry about the family, whatever it is. Yeah. So I said to them, okay, if I put together an audience and got your landing page and could present it in front of your target audience, is that something you would spend £79 and it's about $99, right? And all of them said yes. They're like, yeah, there's nothing like that exists. Apart from one guy who said, the problem with market research, and obviously we do a lot of like stats and things, you need like a certain number, right? Where it starts becoming like real, because otherwise you can make decisions on stuff that isn't.
Well, for qualitative, no, but depends on what you're trying to do. I mean,
so that sort of came back to the point though, where it was like, I think why the phrase messaging works so well as well though. So like you're not relying on like a mass audience where you're going to get a massive decision of 60% of 5,000 people all think this. It's like cherry picks your audience are then going to say whether the messaging works. I think that was.
Well, it's people, of course, like that untrained in like research methodologies. They don't know many things of it. I mean, it's valid that they feel that way, but it's still wrong. So education is needed. Like, what is qualitative research, and why, based on 5 people, you absolutely can make big changes. I mean, a lot of drug research is done on sample sizes of 10. Yeah, obviously, quant methods for use cases are different. Basically, what I'm saying. To understand why your messaging is failing, what's the problem? You don't need 1,000 people.
No.
And obviously, if you're doing your company strategy based on public voting, well, then that's also a really wrong way to go about it. Even inside your own organization, like if CEOs are managing through consensus and deciding where the company should go based on internal polling, that's a disaster as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's something we always say internally, which is like you just don't get anywhere by committee. You just got to, everything would slow down. You'd never make a decision. And it's the same thing. You'd end up, like you said, with 4,000 people having an opinion, you might end up going down the wrong way anyway.
For sure, yeah. I mean, strategy has. I mean, obviously you need as much data as possible, but strategy has, let's say, I want to say more commitment and conviction than answers.
So I just want to bring it back to the sort of the consumer side of it, and those kind of messaging that you do. For people listening who might want to sort of think, what are the kind of latest trends or anything you always look for, which you think this is the first thing I look at whenever I analyze messaging, or just depend entirely on the business?
Well, the key thing is something that it's universal. Like, what makes an effective messaging? Like a number one thing is always clarity. Like, do I understand it? And if I don't understand it, I'm certainly not going to buy it. So it needs to be clear. And sometimes the product is obvious. Like, you're selling pants. Okay, it's pants. Like, I don't need a lot of explanation here. But as we get into more expensive and complicated things, you need more copy. You need more room to explain it. And so the clarity of copy is by far number one. And then the other factor always is the what's in it for me. Like there's one customer we have is smart goggles for swimmers. So basically like Google Glass, but like it's like the swim goggles. And they presented it in a way that it's so it has electronic display and whatever, some gigahertz and some other technical parameters, bunch of bullet points. And people were like, yeah, but why do I want it? Like, I don't care about the technical parameters and how it's like waterproof and, whatever, comfortable around my head. But why would I need smart swim goggles? Like people weren't sold on the benefits or like the why. Which so those two things I think is like 80%. The rest is like
Yeah. What's you mentioned your other company CXL. Do you think sort of people taking that course would be able to create messaging or any sort of course like that, I guess, where they didn't need audiences? Or do you always need audiences because that's where you're going to find the truth, sort of thing?
Well, I mean, any piece of copy you write is a hypothesis. Obviously, you want to be as well informed as possible upfront about, the more you know about your audience, the odds are better that you're going to write better copy. And two, the more copywriting skill you have, because it's a skill, the better the odds that it's going to come out, great. But you are not your customer. And especially if it's your business, you are like, you're too close and you've forgotten what it's like to be new to the stuff, whatever that you're selling. And so the point of message testing is to check how it's landing. Because maybe it's not landing at all. Maybe it's landing fabulously, great. But like, what are the what are the odds that you write copy and it's perfect from the first, from the get-go? The odds are very slim. Nobody's, can write perfect copy. So there are always issues that you didn't even put in, like, because you've forgotten what it's like to be, it's a curse of knowledge. You've forgotten what it's like to be new to this. So you didn't even mention 5 things that people new to this product are like, oh, but what about blah, blah, blah. It's like the swim goggle people who wrote that copy. They know the product real well, but they've forgotten what it's like to know, like, why one might want to buy it to begin with.
Yeah, I can see it because, like I said, with our own company, the copy, we're looking at it constantly, and just trying to find that clarity that's really difficult. Like exactly like you said, internally, and I can see it applies B2C as well because you, like you said, you're so close to it that you can't like remove yourself.
For sure. So I just pulled up your site, so Data Ball. So make lead generation your competitive edge. Okay, so is that something that people care about? It's a question. I don't know anything.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering. Do they think like, yeah, man, I really need a competitive edge? Man, what could it be? Oh, hey, lead gen. But here you're not saying anything really about yourself. Like, again, maybe it's fine, but maybe you're really shooting yourself in the foot here by selling an idea and not yourself. And so the way I'm thinking about message testing is you use question. You question the messaging, because what message testing is like, it's not like you put messaging in front of an audience and then ask them, what do you think? No. You have research questions about it. So first, internally, you brainstorm, what is it that I'm wondering about? What is it that I'm having doubts about? Things like that.
And so do you put Winter through the same process then?
So we've tried it. There's a slight problem with bias.
I thought you were going to say it doesn't work.
So we tested it on a consumer audience just to see, because like traditionally your copy should be so clear that any grandma can understand it. And consumer audiences just don't get it, because like they even lack the, like, what is copy? They just don't know. And yes, in copywriting you shouldn't really use jargon, but then again you absolutely should use jargon, because if it's an industry lingo, if it's like, if I'm selling SEO and people coming to buy SEO from me, they want to buy SEO, and I'm saying, the thing like in search engine where you like, nobody needs me to explain this. Like, I just say SEO, everybody knows. And if you're, you just came out of the woods and you have no idea, then that's fine. So I'm pro jargon when everybody understands what those things mean.
Yeah.
So we learned that, but then the other thing was, like, with B2B audiences, our panelists, like, we've recruited them to join our panel. So they've obviously already checked out our stuff. Ideally, message testing is done with people who, for the first time, are exposed to your brand. They've never seen it before. They have no preconceived idea. And they've maybe already, in our case, they've invested time to figure out how it works. And they know exactly how it works because they're the testers, right? So when we say, ask them to rate the clarity of the copy, it's bias. So it's not representative. If we had a competitor, we'd absolutely use their service to check.
But you don't have one. A category of your own.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't call it a category, but a subcategory, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how does it work like with your clients? Is it like an ongoing relationship, or are you constantly testing and refining stuff, or do they just give you do they just give you one page and they come back with one headline or whatever it is, or are you constantly refining things with them?
So are you asking how our clients are using the platform, or testers?
Yeah, no, sorry, your clients. I'm wondering, like we're always testing stuff, and I wondered whether is that how they work with you, or is it just like a one-off sort of thing?
So currently, our business model is that we charge per test, and then it's pay as you go.
Okay. So it's not like a retainer.
So that for now, we're adding subscriptions and so on down the line as we're building out more use cases, and we're also seeing what is a natural frequency of use. We're pretty early stage right now, as I said. But there are key things that prompt people to do messaging. Like, if you've never done message testing, sorry. If you've never done it, like, yeah, you're curious. Hey, how do I come across? Like, do they get it? Do they want it? Key thing. Because like your sales copy only exists for the purpose of converting customers. If you're not in business. It's not to entertain. This is not a blog post. Like, we're checking direct response copy, so people are curious. 2 is like when they're building new stuff, they have a new product coming out, they're shipping new landing pages, or they're redoing their website. And before putting it in production, before pushing it live, you want to check, and you want to eliminate the first things, because what message testing tells you is basically where it's going wrong. Like, it will discover the holes in your messaging, what the information that's missing, friction, what's turning people off, etc. And then also when you want to spend a bunch of money driving traffic to a landing page. So landing page conversion rate, very important if you're spending a bunch of money message testing.
Well, it's interesting you say it, because people spend hundreds of millions of pounds, maybe even a month, on driving traffic to landing pages, and the copy is just written once. And what we find is people will focus more on changing the images and the layout of buttons and the layout of can you just put that button there, change the FAQs, whatever else, and not necessarily as much on the copy. When their stats are tanking or not performing as they thought they would.
Yeah, there might be a use case where the imagery has a bigger impact. Like, especially if these are like visual products, like if you're selling clothing or like any kind of accessories, the photos might do a lot of the selling. Obviously, it depends on the price range. Like, if it's like a impulse purchase price range, I think photos will do the bulk of the selling. But as we're nearing, $700, earrings, or $5,000 wristwatch, not an impulse purchase exactly. So once we get into that territory where the consideration, the time to consider the purchase will increase, it's copy that will close the deal. Like that's when you walk to a fancy, luxury store, whoever is the salesperson there will close it. Will have this pitch, and this is the final letter, and blah blah blah. Now online, it's all, you don't have salespeople, so copy is the salesperson. So for expensive products, copy absolutely sells it. And if it's a complicated product like any SaaS or services, like agency services, consulting, all very complicated services, they're not standardized. They're all closed by copy.
100%.
And are there any mistakes that you think marketers and copywriters make that you just see time and time again? Every time you see it, it's like, that's a mistake people keep making.
Yeah, well, besides the clarity and what's in it for me, mistakes that we kind of like touched upon already. Specifics versus superlatives. A lot of superlatives going out there, like we're the best and we're the fastest. Like A, nobody believes that, and B, I just like it's probably not true. Also, I mean, it might be true, but I still don't believe it. If you say like you go to a web hosting landing page, you just say we're the fastest web host in the world. What is your first gut check reaction? It's like probably it's like bullshit. Yeah. So, but if you say our site loads on average in 300 milliseconds, your gut reaction is, oh, that's cool. Like you're not questioning facts, specific statements, but like our bullshit detectors are like very fine tuned because of all the bullshit that's, they're out there online. So that is another thing that I see quite a bit. And then length of copy. A lot of pages just don't have enough of it. Obviously, there's a fine balance between having too much and not at all. But the way I think about it is like, if I'm your ideal customer and I read everything and I still have questions, you have failed me. So your copy should be thorough enough that no question is unturned. And then another huge issue is differentiation. So a lot of agencies and SaaS companies alike, they talk about themselves as if they are the only one doing what they're doing. We send beautiful email newsletters. So does everybody else. We do lead generation. My cousin Vinny does lead generation. Come on, man. Like, you cannot state what you're doing as if you're the only one doing. Like, you need to find your differentiation, your oneness. Why choose us? So many companies let's just not mention it. Let them figure it out. Which is a horrible mistake.
It's more about almost what to avoid than what to do, because it's quite difficult to find. I don't think it's difficult, but to not have the superlative, but at the same time, they could like stand out in comparison to just saying what you do, if you know what I mean. So there has to be a different way.
I mean, I think writing amazing copy is hard, but writing copy that does not suck is not hard. It's pretty easy.
Yeah.
If you can checklist that stuff, you can have like 5 things every piece of copy needs to have, and check the boxes, and you're done. It's guaranteed to be above average. Yet online we see so much horrible copy because people are not even covering basic things.
So in terms of your companies, so you've got CXL, Spiro, and Winter. And CXL is huge, right? You've got some of the biggest companies in the world using it. Spiro doing customer experience stuff or CX stuff. I don't know. Do you have the same sort of companies using it, or is it different types?
Spiro, I mean, yeah, it's mid-market to large enterprises. So we have some, the biggest of the biggest, and then also like what we call a mid-sized company, like 30 to 300 million range.
Yeah. So between all of them, how much would you say that your copy has influenced like how they've managed to grow? Because obviously they've grown because of what you provide, but how's the copy done that as well? And has it?
Yeah, well, it's really hard to attribute, especially in hindsight. But like, I think copy has played a big role, and obviously it's always a multi thing. There's so many things going on, like how well you do your other marketing and all these things. I have always been about writing a lot of copy, direct response copy. And so, I mean, for CXL, the way we convert customers is through copy, because like we have like some 60 plus courses, and then all these PPC landing pages, webinar landing pages, and they're all copy heavy, pages. And in order to increase the conversion rate, we need to improve the copy, which actually led me to build Winter, because couldn't find a tool that would help me, that would tell me what's wrong with the copy.
Mm. And what, in terms of the sort of growth and stuff, and do you use a single voice like across all your different ads? And so you were talking about PPC and other types of advertising, then you obviously have the copy on the site, or do you split test across them, or use different things depending on how you're driving traffic, or do you have the same like resonance across everything?
Well, we have like tone of voice guides. Maybe not for Winter right now, but since I'm doing all the marketing and sales currently, it's like in my head.
I read about it earlier. I was like, I wonder how many clients he's got doing it all himself. A lot.
But for CXL, I mean, there's a very distinct voice, and there are certain things we never do. Like we have rules, like cannot use exclamation marks ever, or like one per year, and then no hype. Hype is not allowed. You have to speak in a confident, factual manner about things, and et cetera, et cetera. So when new marketing people start onboarding and they start first doing their, putting together a newsletter, whatever, emails on our behalf, or like writing sales copy, then that's like a necessary part of the training they go through, is like figuring out and understanding what our voice is like.
And is that to appeal to enterprise clients then? Is that why you don't have as much sort of clickbaity, like you're saying? I know it's not the exclamation marks.
Well, it's how it's about your overall brand DNA. And I mean, a lot of it is, I think initially was born based on some of my own personal convictions, values, and what I am attracted to or not. And so as you know, online there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of hype out there. And then my frenemies like Neil Patel that I like to make fun of online, and he's like the hype guy, right? And I just don't believe in that. And in the e-learning space, which is a very crowded market, CXL, we compete on being the best, not the cheapest. We're actually one of the more expensive options out there. So you want to portray a certain image of premium, and then that comes with confidence. And a premium, let's say if it's luxury cars, what is the experience at an expensive car lot versus used cars? What kind of sales tactics they would use? So it's more like, what is the high end shopping e-learning shopping experience, and certainly hype free.
So how do you manage that with Spiro when it's meat market and enterprise? Is it a different?
I want to say that it's since we spun off Spiro just very recently. It's been less than a month, because it used to be under a CXL umbrella, CXL agency. So it previously fell under the CXL tone of voice guidelines. With the new brand rollout, this kind of like, let's say, more minutia, which is like the tone of voice and so on, I've been actually less involved because I got plenty of things going on. I cannot like.
Got a lot of demos to do. That's what you're doing, right?
Yeah, I don't even want to be hands-on with all the things. It's just you only have so much mind space,
The reason I'm asking is, and again, I'm just coming back to us. So this podcast, for anyone that's listening, is sort of wavering between our interest and the subject matter. The reason I'm asking is that we work with lead generators, right? Which are they can even be one-man bands, small companies, agencies, and stuff like that. And they are very much attached to the Neil Patel type things. If I put a picture of a Lamborghini and we sat on it with a Daytona on, it's like, yes, this is the one to follow. But then we have we don't do that. I'm just telling you if I did do it. But then we have enterprise clients where it's a bit more like the CXL sort of methodology that we go after, because it's a premium product where we want to show that we're looking after data and
with a big enterprise, they often have a tendency to just go super jargony that means nothing at all. It's like the classic thing is like, would you say that sentence in a conversation? Would you use that in a conversation? No. So then don't say that. So it still needs to be conversational. There's no excuse for having like boring, dry copy. In fact, like the key reason, like with Winter, like we assess the boringness of a copy with a Likert scale, and it's often in B2B. The reason why people stop reading the copy, it's because it's boring. Like you just don't. It doesn't resonate, because ideally you would be reading and nodding at the same time. Yes, 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 exactly. That speaks to me. I want that, and then I don't want the other thing, whatever it's saying. It's like it resonates with the pain or the desired gain that you have. But if it's just we superchargify your interconnected cloud networks at lightning speed, it's like what?
That sounds great. I'd buy that.
Yeah, I was just telling my buddy, like, I really need one of those.
Oh, so you said that Winter's 6 months old at the moment.
It's been on the market, around 6 months.
So early days, but what have you got planned next for it? What's the next stage? What can we expect to see?
Yeah, so as I alluded earlier, message testing as a use case is just the first one that we rolled out. So a lot of stuff is in the pipeline in terms of adding more use cases. So one is like comparison testing with your, let's say, number of competitors. So you have your company, and then you can pick, let's say, two closest competitors and put them in front of an audience, and they would say which pitch sounds better and why. And the testers obviously wouldn't know who ordered this test. So testing this, or also for internal arguments, like should we say it like this or like this, we can do like phrase testing, which delivers which has the most, packs the most punch, is the most clear. And then also now we're building audience research features. So let's say that you're a content marketing agency selling to SaaS CMOs. Okay, so before I can craft a copy that really resonates with the SaaS CMOs, I need to know what are their problems with content marketing. Like, is it hiring the writers? Is it editing the writing? Is it doing enough volume? Is it cutting costs? It could be a number of things, right? So I don't know. But if I am if I have an understanding like what kind of SaaS companies are my ideal customer, I can now do pre-survey. I can do market research, audience research, and understand their pain points. And then I can make my copy talk about those, address those pain points, and then obviously I can do message testing to see did it land, did what I put together land. So audience research is coming in the pipeline, and down the line, our goal is to we're basically building a platform for B2B audiences where anybody will open it up through an API, and anybody can build their own businesses on top of our panels. Like, you have an idea for a use case, if people could like choose the type of people, just build your own SaaS company on top of ours.
That's a great idea. It's I read somewhere about a DEFTA that you've been working on. Is that still in the pipeline? You got some?
Yeah, we're releasing it as a CXL product mid 2021. It's a new take on what e-learning products might look like. because the problem with is long courses that we at CXL also produce is that it's only for the most disciplined. Most people who start an online course never finish it because no time, or like they have the time but they don't make the time because you have no accountability at when you went to the university. Your parents expected you to graduate, your professors expected something of you. There was some peer pressure, but nobody cares if you complete an online course, like nobody. Or like your manager at work will ask you, did you do these tasks? They will not ask you, did you do this learning? Did you read a book this over the weekend? Nobody cares. Like, so your professional growth is all on you, and that requires discipline. Most people don't have it. So
Yeah. When I read it, I was like, that's basically how people learn already. So we've got, like, as you can imagine, developers, front-end developers, designers. First
yeah,
thing that anybody does when they don't need to do something, they spend 5 minutes learning how to do it and then 5 minutes doing it. And I
exactly.
heard, and it's the way that if you're like semi-technical and you've got a deep dive, I don't know, like you just got to learn something in Google how to do it quickly. And that's literally your
Exactly
task.
right. And then if you go down the Google rabbit hole, it's like like hard to find right content because Google doesn't rank the content based on what's actually the best thing. It's just mostly backlinks. And then like what's outdated, what's up to date, who even put it together. Most how-to content online is put together by content writers, not subject matter experts. So it's mostly bullshit. Yeah, so hoping to solve a lot of this with Adeft.
I just have one final question on the SaaS part. 'Cause obviously, we're a SaaS company. I was just interested. So currently, is it like the SaaS element is the part of the panelists access, right? So they get the delivery of the web page, and then they can go through and leave comments.
So
and everything.
for our customers, it's a seamless experiment. Sorry, seamless experience. So log in,
an experiment.
set up a test, bam, pay, and the data comes in, and that's it. It might as well be automated. Behind the scene, there are like humans at work there. Obviously, the processes and all that stuff, it's automated as much as we can. There's a degree of human touch there. Maybe down the line we can completely automate it. Right now, there's some manual curation happening. But yeah, for the user, it's very fast, and it's as if it's software only.
Cool. That's been brilliant. Thank you. I see we're nearly up at time. What I just had a question I wanted to know is what's so obviously you're from Estonia originally, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you get into the sort of copy of English, or was it something you just learned at school or something since you've been working when you were in the US, or how has it developed? Or because obviously you're like the master of it, right? That's what you're known as.
I mean, it's like anything. It's like practice, practice, practice. I mean, I've always been a writer. I mean, in Europe, everybody speaks English. Oh, well, depends on the country size. Like bigger countries don't. Like Poland, Italy, Spain, pretty poor English because all their movies adapt. Like the Hollywood movies. Any smaller country like the Netherlands, Denmark, or Estonia, everybody speaks fluent English. So I learned English at a very young age. And then I worked in sales in Dubai for 2 years, so a lot of sales experience.
What were you selling?
Year one, I was selling basically non-profit sponsorships, basically a fundraiser.
Right.
And year two, I was selling advertising in online portals, basically. But then I gravitated towards digital marketing and conversion optimization, and that's a lot of copy there. Yeah, and so now like probably 2 decades of writing copy, or like 15 years. So practice.
Brilliant. Cool.
Thank you so much for your time. We've really enjoyed it, and apologies to anyone listening if we've gone slightly
Thank
off,
you, Dan
off
and Simon,
limit,
for having me.
Yeah, it went off completely, but it's all been good. It's really
It's been really good. Yeah, we've really enjoyed it, and yeah. You're listening to the B2C Lead Generation podcast, and now it's time for the post-chat rundown. It's pretty simple. We talk through the conversation, assess what we've learned from our guest, and pull out the key ideas for you, the stuff we think can make a real difference to your lead gen. That was Peep Laja talking to us about the importance of copywriting in lead generation. Now, we went off a bit of a tangent there. As the conversation was going, that's fine. We tend to do that. But just listening back and think back to what we talked about, Simon, is there anything in that, although we were talking primarily about B2B, that you think people involved in B2C lead generation should sort of pay attention to?
Well, a lot of the same things apply with the sort of positioning and messaging that you put out, and the idea of your brand being the moat and the messaging that goes with that. So for lead generation, especially in B2C, and I think we mentioned this while we were talking, it's not taken with the sort of greatest importance up there with like what's going to be applied. It's, and I've been guilty of this as well when I've sort of, obviously not anymore, but we help people build landing pages. And so sometimes they'll ask me for suggestions of wording and messaging and stuff. And a lot of times it's like, let's, our main thing is we try and just reverse it so that it always becomes like prospect first. But when you actually start thinking about messaging and positioning to build a brand, the lead generation activity that you carry out should form part of that as well. And so it's a really great opportunity for brands to get their messaging across to a wider audience potentially. But also, we talk constantly, and I won't go through the reasons why it needs to be again, but the lead generators becoming brands. If you look at a lot of lead generation in sort of specific verticals, let's say life insurance, for example, they all just do the same thing. Like all the lead generators have the same messaging, the same approach, probably go for a very similar audience. It's all very vanilla or beige, I would say. And there's a couple, like we've seen the guys, Tom, I think they're called, that go for like an ads only sort of hipster approach. And the amazing thing is you really appreciate the positioning and messaging once you see something like that, because you realize how much it jumps out at you and how different it really is and how memorable it is. So I think everything you mentioned can be applied back to your lead generation from that perspective. Definitely for brands and really for lead generators that want to turn themselves into brands.
Just something you said there is quite interesting. You said that people seem to follow suit and all be quite similar, and then if something stands out, it really is noticeable. And I think that's like, we were saying the same stuff about the advertorials when we first talked about the native stuff, like all the adverts are very similar and the images. And do you reckon that's quite a pattern that, I don't know, lead generators all seem to copy each other? So it's opportunity for certain lead generators and to really sort of do something different and make themselves stand out.
Potentially. I mean, so much of this is driven by paid media and tactics and sort of hacks to drive more actions via paid media. So what everyone's really looking at is what is going to make more people click on my advert, and once they've clicked on my advert, is going to make them fill in the form or whatever it is, the next action I'm going to take. So this is what forms a lot of the brand or the brand that's built, and the positioning and messaging is a sort of short-term tactic to make a visitor take an action. So if you're doing lead generation and you're paying on a cost per click, or there's some other or a CPM, you sort of, you can see why you're sort of stuck in that rut, if you want to call it that. I mean, it obviously works, but it's not scary, but you'd have to take some risks if you're going to change that and test it massively. But again, I don't want to keep saying this, if you are a brand, you take a bit of the risk out of that in itself anyway, because rather than just going for a short-term tactic of making a conversion happen, you actually have like a bigger idea. So you've got a bigger mission that comes across as part of the brand, obviously. So rather than your mission being, which is what a lot of lead generators, their mission is, we want to turn more clicks into leads. Imagine your bigger sort of position is we want to help householders save money and get the best deals for things that matter or something. And that starts becoming the motivation that you use to drive traffic. It can help with your positioning and potentially keep you sort of focused on the CPC or the CPM, however you're doing it. But it is tough if you're doing it by paid media, and it is, it's why you need to build a brand, in my view.
Just to get into how it actually works, like typically, is it normally the lead generator or the brand who is providing the copy? Do you think, like, is there a standard way of doing it?
Well, you virtually only ever see brands doing lead generation directly, right? Like if their logo is being used in messaging and stuff, it's usually either via their agency that does like a host of other stuff, or via like a media buying team or something internally at a brand. Once you outsource it, it becomes someone else's brand, and they're just collecting leads under their brand and feeding it to you. And this is where, brands really, once you know that and you look at the brand awareness that the lead generation entity that's been created has with all its prospects, which could be millions of people viewing ads, taking in messaging, converting to what they say. That's how you can actually build a lead gen brand, right? It also means that there's a massive opportunity there for brands if they actually started doing this. So what some people could argue is, well, there's then a compliance piece around it that the brand would have to focus on, or what about any negative aspects of that lead generation? So for the compliance piece, I mean, it's just compliance. If you're not being compliant anyway, and the lead gen ad that you're running isn't compliant, but you're buying those leads, I mean, you're sort of complicit anyway, because if you're not checking whether that's compliant, you've got bigger problems. And with the negative stuff, I mean, I highlighted this in a LinkedIn post, for example, where, because I've seen this loads and loads of times, a brand will say, the marketing department of a brand will say, we can't run our own lead gen because we don't want to put this messaging on there. It doesn't fit within the brand guidelines because we're being asked to do this, this, and this. But they'll then go out and buy a list of 1 million people of someone else's data that they have a opt-in to, but there's no intent behind it, and then put it into a call center and dial it for the next 2 months. I mean, imagine that for brand awareness.
Yeah.
Then like 80% of the people who get called will be pissed off about getting the call, and there are brands associated with it. But it's when you actually start digging beneath it, I just think brands should run their own lead gen. The sort of brand awareness, the halo effect that happens around it, the leads that are actually generated that can then be used by marketing and sales. All I see is upsides.
It's quite interesting actually that something as, I don't know, as small as copywriting, because I was treated in the same way, but you look at one aspect of it, copywriting, and then you go into the whole spectrum of how brands can do, so much more in this sense. But I think that's quite interesting about, what we're talking to with people is that they don't give it the attention it deserves, maybe. We're saying spend so much money driving traffic to these pages, and then copywriting can be an afterthought at times, or it's not tested even in the same way that imagery is done. I don't know whether it's because there's a perception that it's easier in comparison to like the design of it. I have no idea really. But I think hopefully people listening will find what he said a good prompt to actually look at their own copy and think, you know what, let's make some marginal gains here. Let's test this up. Let's see if we can test every little bit, tweak every little bit, and get as much as we can possible, and test things to get the best results. And yeah, absolutely, copywriting is vitally important for that.
And the other thing, talking to Pep, I mean, it's no wonder we went off on a tangent, because he's just, a sort of expert in his field. So you tend to do that with experts in their field, right? Because you just start talking to them about stuff and you really want to know what they know and sort of get information out of them, which is why it then started turning to what Databall could do, and thinking about the positioning and messaging that we'll do. But yeah, I mean, he just has a really good point, which is anyone can copy anything that you ever do. It's 2021. Very, very few companies have like an actual thing or a feature or a product that they do that's wildly different from anyone else. So the only thing that you can then rely on is your positioning, your messaging, and how you're different to other people. And then a lot of that's the story that's built from doing it as well, right? But yeah, that's the big takeaway for me, and that applies across all markets, all verticals, B2B, B2C, I think, as well.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I really enjoyed that one. I enjoyed talking to Pep, and I thought that was really interesting. And hopefully you found it interesting if you're listening too. So yeah, that was Pep talking to us about the importance of copywriting in lead generation. Thanks for listening to the B2C Lead Generation Podcast, the show for serious lead generators. Be sure to hit subscribe to hear more from those at the very cutting edge of the lead gen world.